Chapter 301. Wait, if it's a Lombardi, that's what I said before. Yes, that's right, the family with powers that even the imperial family can't do anything to them. She was more pleased, and Avane Ropili nodded. Meeting a member of the Lombardi is actually like picking the stars in the sky, but since you said you definitely met him in Shan's dream, it will definitely be possible. Shan covered her mouth involuntarily. All the pieces seemed to fit together. Galyahan Lombardi. She didn't even think that he might be a person with the same name. Intuition was telling her, that's the name of that man. Hey, Shan, I was going to talk anyway. Abanetofili cautiously brought it up to Shan, who was still pondering the name. I think I'll probably leave the forest soon. I'm finishing my research. Oh, a sadness that could not be hidden appeared on Shan's face. At first, it was a relationship that began with simple curiosity about outsiders. However, in a long conversation, the two naturally became friends. Shan can't believe Avan is leaving the village. She already couldn't hide her emptiness in her heart. I can't believe your research is coming to an end. It's something to celebrate, right? Still, she can't make the person who was leaving feel uncomfortable. So Shan smiled hard, and Abani Rofili grabbed Shan's hand and asked, would you like to go outside with me? With teacher Abane, Shan will be much safer than moving alone. And more than anything, if Shan's destiny is Gallihan Lombardi, shouldn't you meet him at least once? She meets Gallihan Lombardi in person. Just thinking about it made her heart beat faster. She remembered his warm eyes and smiles that looked at the children. Will you smile at me like that too? Young blush appeared on Shan's both cheeks. However, there was no immediate answer. Abaneropili, who realized that something was prolonging Shan's troubles, hurriedly added, if I made an offer that was too burdensome. No, it's not like that, but there are some things to think about. After hesitating for a while, Shan finally explained with a small sigh. There are two rules of Chara tribe that the teacher Abane doesn't know yet. What is it? Once you leave the forest, you can't come back. What did you say? And those who go outside can't even talk about the special power of the Chara tribe. When you leave here, you just have to bury everything in your heart. Such a rule. Abaneropili, who was unable to speak as if in shock, soon realized that something was wrong. But Chieftain Sora allowed me to do research on the Chara tribe and publish a book. That's right. My mother thinks that the Chara tribe should now step out of the world. How surprised the villagers were when Sora first showed its meaning by bringing Abane into the forest. Shan smiled broadly, recalling the time. Maybe for my mother, Teacher Abane's book is like the first step out toward the outside. Shan was very proud of such a mother, until she suddenly forbade her meeting with Abane Ropili. That's why I don't understand. I can't believe that someone like her would be so mad at me, her real daughter, being so close to Teacher Abane. But that's not enough. If her only daughter says she will leave the forest, but it might be a good thing. Sun Shan clenched both of her fists. Maybe I could be the trigger, the first person to freely move between the forest and outside. She is the daughter of the current chieftain, and she has been appointed as the next chieftain, and there is no one better suited for it than herself. If I explain well what I saw in my dream, my mother will agree. I'm sure it is. That's what Shan believed. Besides, I don't go out alone, especially with teacher Abane. Shan promised as she held Abane's hand tightly. I'll talk to my mother and bring you good news. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The meeting of the elders ended only at sunset. Until then, Shan had wandered through the woods to find something that Sora might like. It was because she needed to make her feel good before starting her full-fledged conversation. Then she came to a meadow on the outskirts of the village. It's a field of bomnia flowers. Red flowers were in full bloom in the wide field. This is good enough. Tea made from bomnia petals was one of Sora's favorites because of its mild sweetness. Shan hummed and began picking flowers carefully. Bomnia flowers quickly piled up on top of the cloak that she had taken off to use as a substitute for a bundle. After a while, Shan patted on the back and lay down on the field. Oh, I'm tired. She said so, but Shan was smiling. In fact, she didn't even know it was difficult. She just wanted to talk to her mother. So it was totally unintentional to fall asleep. Shan, would you like to wake up for a second? A friendly voice was heard. On the warm, sunny bed, she liked the feeling of the warm bedding, so she rubbed her face. Then a low laughter that was good to hear above her head rang. When she slowly opened her eyes, she met her green eyes filled with warmth. Oh, golly. When she playfully called him by his nickname, a look of embarrassment crossed his white face. I wanted to let you sleep a little longer, but Tia kept looking for Shan. Shan's gaze moved at Gallihan's words. What the hell? What he held dearly in his arms was a small baby who seemed to be just a few days old. The moment she saw the baby's white face, Shan could tell that this child is the fruit of the love she and Gallihan have created. Hi, Tia. Shan quickly accepted the baby. The baby who was likely to get hurt with a little force was still too small. Nevertheless, breathing hard, and wriggling her arms and legs were amazing and proud. As if something didn't feel right, the baby's forehead, with her eyes closed tightly, was frowned. Our Tia must have missed her mom, Shan whispered softly so that the child would not be surprised. Then, like a lie, a small smile bloomed on her face. Shan thought someone had taken her breath away. Otherwise, her heart could not be filled like this. Whether she knew her mother's happiness or not, the baby just smiled with her red mouth open, with a face that resembled Shan and Galyahan little by little. Shan carefully raised her index finger and stroked her child's cheek, and the moment she touched it, because she was amazed by the fingertips with small nails like crescent moon. Oh, the baby's little hand clasped Shan's fingers tightly, as if she's telling her not to go anywhere, like that. Her eyes lit up with hot tears, and as she slowly raised her head, Galyahan kissed Shan's forehead. It was a very careful kiss, as if the petals were falling. Shan opened her eyes to the sensation of something tickling her forehead. When she reached out in surprise, a red bomnia flower came along. Only then did Shan realize that she had fallen asleep, and she sat up and muttered, "Oh, baby." Her face turned red like a bomnia of tea. With that man, she remembered the baby who was still babbling. The tip of her finger, which the little hand was holding, was tingling. As if the warmth had been taken away, Shan jumped up from her seat. She hurriedly picked up bomnia flowers as well. After she got home, she was even busier. A pile of bomnia was spread out in a sunny place as she cleaned the house. She also watered the garden in the backyard and prepared dinner with fresh ingredients. But she didn't even know it was difficult. Even if she sweated a little, it was refreshing. At the same time, she didn't know how many times she looked out the window. She couldn't wait to share the contents of her dream with her mother. She must be very happy. After her father passed away early, Sora and Shan were always the only family. Although she did not find a match for her in the forest, Shan knew her better than anyone else, whom she would cherish more than anyone if she had a granddaughter. Tia, you were Florentia. Shan nodded and smiled brightly. It was then. Sora appeared on the road in front of her house. Shan, who hurriedly ran in front of the door, quickly opened the door wide and welcomed her. Welcome home. Something good must be going on. Sora's lips, which had been firmly hardened throughout the long meeting, was loosened. Even Sora couldn't help it in front of the bright face of her daughter, whom she had not seen in a long time. I've prepared everything, Mother. First, sit here. Do you want to eat first? I don't want to have an upset stomach because of your impatience while eating. Say what you want to say. Well, that's it. Originally, she was going to talk in a good atmosphere while eating. She can't help it. Shan cleared her throat at once and opened her mouth. Teacher Abana's studies are coming to an end soon, Mother. She seems to be progressing a lot faster than she said at first. That's great, right? That's why when Teacher Abani leaves the forest, I wonder how it would be if I went with her. What? Shan hesitated for a moment at the colder reaction than she had expected, but Shan continued to speak up with courage. My mother always said that disconnection from the outside should be over now. So how about I try to start it? Actually, I've been dreaming lately. You can't. Gryuk. As Sora got up from her seat, the chair scratched the floor roughly. Listen a little more, Mother. I have good news for you too. Stop. If you can't, then can't. Eventually, Sora shouted. You should never leave this forest. Why? It was a question that did not expect an answer. She has asked her several times, but it's no use. You won't tell me again this time. I just want to know that. If you leave this forest, you will die, Shan. What? That's why you can't leave. End of chapter 301. Chapter 302. Shan doubted her ears. Am I going to die? Why have I? She couldn't understand. If she leave the forest, she'll die. The precognitive dream was clear. Her destiny is to leave this forest, fall in love with a man named Kalyahan, and have a daughter named Florentia. You must have seen it wrong. That can't be true. Shan shook her head and denied it. Please tell me exactly what did my mother see? Sora said more groaningly over the face of her daughter, who had a hardened face than ever before. I received your obituary one winter. The obituary brought by someone who came to me outside the forest. Ha, but that could be a story after a long time. Besides, you have a very young daughter. She wasn't even a year old. I'm going to die less than a year after giving birth to Tia. Did you even know the child's name? The edge of Sora's voice stood up. Shan's daughter was also Sora's granddaughter. However, the name of the child who would not even be born was nothing more than a noise she didn't want to hear. Forget that name, because you won't have the child. Mother, those words. Shan tried to protest. No matter how No matter how mother she was, she tried to get angry that she shouldn't say such terrible things, but for a moment her eyes were blurred. At the same time, the landscape of the house they were talking about changed. She was back in the bedroom she saw in her dream a while ago, to the place where she smiled happily with Galyahan holding Tia in her arms in the warm sunlight. Galyahan was still by Shan's side. Right next to her, he was holding her hand and weeping. Sean, his face messed up with cold tears, touched the back of her hand. Please don't leave me behind, he sobbed. She wanted to tell him who was in so much pain. Stop crying, I'm fine. However, no voice came out. So, as hard as she could, she tried to squeeze his hand, but only a few fingers moved. But perhaps that was too much. It was getting harder and harder to breathe. Please, Shan, no. Galyahan hung on like a child. He fumbled her face with his two hands, kissing her countless times, trying to somehow hold her by her side. Tears that didn't know who belonged to were running down Shan's face. She was going to say that I also don't want to leave your side. If there is no sound, just the shape of mouth. She wanted to convey that to him who was sad. Shan reflexively reached out and grabbed Galyahan's hand. At that moment, gasp, what was held in her hand was the backrest of a hard chair. Shan had returned to the present, the house in the forest. Do you get it now? Sora, who was watching Shan shedding tears, while staring blankly in the air during the conversation, asked in a cold voice, Ha, ha. Shan, who couldn't come to her senses for a moment, roughly wiped away his tears. Why? Why am I? I'm definitely dying in the future. I'm scared. I'm scared and wanted to run away. Sora, who read Shan's mind, said, Now you know, so you can avoid it. Shan shook her head helplessly. Just as we avoided the flood that would have swept the village and took many lives, we can do it this time as well. You just have to make another choice. Shan said nothing. She just looked at Sora with empty eyes. Go back to your room. I'm tired, so go to sleep and talk again after wake up. Shan followed Sora's words. Wobble. With a weak step, she returned to her room and closed the door. Sora, who stood a little longer in front of Shan's silently closed door, returned to her room and lay down her tired body. There was clearly a sense of relief. If Shan was stubborn, she was going to give order as chieftain of the Chara tribe instead as her mother. She tried to keep her daughter here, even if she would lose her right to leave the forest for the rest of her life. That was Sora's way of protecting Shan. Sora, who fell asleep as if she had lost her mind, woke up in the morning. She stood up, picking up her ruffled clothes. The house was still quiet. It happened yesterday, so it was only natural that Shan hadn't gotten out of bed yet. As she last saw yesterday, she opened the door of Shan's bedroom that was still tightly closed. Shan, she thought of waking her up and forcing her to eat. However, Sora stopped as if she were nailed to the spot. Shan? Shan was definitely lying in bed, but at the same time she wasn't here. There was no response even if she called her name over and over again and shook her shoulder. Shan did not wake up from a deep sleep. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It's already been 3 days since Shan didn't wake up. In a quiet room where only her daughter's breath could be heard, Sora sat quietly and stared at the bed. Instead of having the same eyesight as others, she sees what others don't see. That was Sora's ability, and now Sora was contemplating Shan's emotions she was dreaming of. In a dream of a brief future, Shan was happy. Sometimes she felt sad and tired, but that was all. Freedom, joy, satisfaction, love. It felt like seeing a flower garden in full bloom. What's so good about it? Sora bruised her sleeping daughter. I told you not to leave the forest, but you ran away with this dream. Sora, who muttered lonely, turned her head toward the quiet outside the door. Come in, Anai. Anai, who usually stands as Sora's escort and follows her like a shadow wherever she goes, was guarding her side even today. Don't worry about Shan, Anai. It was just a deep sleep. Is she able to wake up? Anai, who is now in her late teens, asked in a heavy voice unlike her age. She will. Sorry, Sora replied quietly. Inevitably, sadness also appeared on Anna's face. She had the power to pull out trees and swing them, but she was so helpless in front of the fate of the two most precious people, not being able to control her power. Sora, who accepted her for killing her parents, and Shan, who first reached out her hand to call her sister, were also tormented that she could not help. In the silence, Sora suddenly asked, You've said that before, Anna. A bitter smile crossed Sora's lips. It seems that the superpower you have is a curse rather than a blessing, so maybe you are right. Chieftain, my ability, your strength to not know pain, and Shan's ability to see her own future. Because each individual was a Chara tribe with mysterious magical powers, they were able to survive in this jungle until now. It was the deep pride of Sora who led her tribe during that time, but now she only resentful that power. Maybe we're all sinners when I see us being punished like this. Sora sighed deeply as she watched Shan's emotions sway with joy once again. The prince of the magical ability to see anything so far was considered to be the two eyes that had become darkened. However, it seemed that the price of the magical ability to see many things so far was considered to be the two eyes that had become darkened. However, it seemed that the price was ridiculously insufficient. Sora finally realized it. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The morning sun rises and the blue sky brightens. Sora opened the door to Shan's room with quick steps. Shan, sitting in bed and looking out the window, turned her head. Mother, Shan laughed with a face that lost weight because she couldn't eat and drink properly for several days. Good morning. Sora gave a lot of strength to the hand holding the doorknob. She only said hello, but she could feel it. She had the same smile, but in just a few days, Shan seemed to have become a different person. It was bright but aloof, like a person who came back after seeing the end. You must have seen a lot. Haha, I slept for a long time, didn't I? It sounded like a drowsy nap. I think my abilities have blossomed once again. I feel like I can see a lot farther than before, even if I don't have to fall asleep. I know it's not a good thing. Shan smiled bitterly. Maybe it's because I've decided to sacrifice more, right? You, in the end. Sora's face was distorted painfully. I was going to listen to my mother. It's enough to avoid. I can make another choice. Since you said that, it's scary to die. Shan scratched her cheek. I cried for a long time. It's funny. There are things I haven't had yet. I was so sad and lonely, as if I had lost everything, and I felt like I was left alone. I cried a lot. Then I fell asleep. How far did you see it? It's all. Everything. The answer of Shan was strange, and I realized it. I guess I'm incredibly lucky, Mother. There was even a sign of excitement in her voice. Lucky, even if you are going to die? But, Mother, I have been given the opportunity to choose. It's a chance to preview, feel, and choose between the two. Sean laughed really happily. Now I know how much he loves me and how he smiles next to me. Even the body temperature that entangled fingers with the stiff steps that couldn't hide the trembling all remained vivid. I don't know how many years I'll be given, but I still want to make him happy. I want to make him smile like that. Waking up from a long sleep, Sean made a decision. It was a ridiculously easy and natural choice. I will go, Mother, because I'm in love with fate. I'm going to go to that person. End of chapter 302. Chapter 303. 10 days. It was the given time until she left the village. Complete all preparations within that time. Tell Abanero Pili like that too. On the day she woke up from a long dream, after a deep silence, Sora left behind those words and turned around. It was a short time to recover the body and prepare to start the long journey, but Shan just nodded. Suddenly, she felt sorry for Abane, who had to finish her research in 10 days. So after recovering enough energy to get up and walk, she often visited Abane's house to help organize. Phew, I think it's almost over. It's all thanks to Shan, Abane said, wiping off her sweat. It was only 3 days before the deadline set by Sora. It's all because of me that the teacher left in such a hurry in the first place. Of course, I have to help. Shan shook off her dusty hands and laughed. She had a happy face after finishing what she had been hanging on for several days. What about Shan? Are you ready to leave? Abani's question was infinitely cautious. Shan, who had been thinking for a while, soon nodded. I don't have much to bring with me anyway. What about the chieftain? When Sora's story came out, Shan's smiling face was also inevitably shaded. I think my mother is very angry. Zora acted as if nothing had happened. She worked as before and in the evening sat together to eat. But it wasn't really okay. She doesn't make eye contact with me. Zora avoided Shan's gaze the whole time, as if she didn't want to read what Shan was thinking by mistake. Those who live will be different from those who send. Unless the rules within the tribe change, you may not see each other for a long time. Shan, please understand. Yes, because we may not be able to see each other for a long time. The real meaning of leaving the village was known only to Shan and Sora. Naturally, while counting the remaining days she could spend with her mother, Shan got up from her resting place. I'll see you soon, Teacher Abane. I think I should go home early today. Okay, see you next time, Shan. After leaving Abane Ropili's house, she headed straight to her house without looking anywhere else. There was not much time to spend time together, so she thought she couldn't let it go in vain like this. Maybe Sora will never forgive her for the rest of her life. But that doesn't mean she's just reading the room like this. She didn't want to leave this like this. I'm going to cook dinner before my mother comes back. She should spend time with her mother like that. She'll have to keep an eye on her when she can see her mother's face. However, such a plan was broken down even before it began. Are you coming now? It was because Sora was waiting for Shan in advance. Oh, mother? Shan didn't expect Sora to be at home at this time, and she was a bit bewildered. She was startled, and Sora beckoned to her daughter, who was unable to enter as she stood at the doorway. I have something to give you, so come and sit down. Shan quickly sat down in the spot Sora pointed out. There were some small packages on the table in the middle. Sora first asked Shan, who couldn't even ask what all these were and was looking closely at them. How are you getting ready to go? I finished tidying up Teacher Abana's house when you said, I think I can leave. Okay. Sora nodded, and then she said, take this with you. What's all this, mother? There was a jingle as she lifted the first heavy pocket. Shan's eyes widened as she looked inside while tilting her head. Isn't this money from outside? It was something that wasn't needed in the village where most of the things were bartered and shared. Money is what the most necessary thing outside. Teacher Abanerupili won't be out of touch, so make sure to get help. Yes, nodding her head, Shan unpacked the second pack, much larger than the first one. It contained several thick clothes. They were thick clothes that she would never wear in the jungle, where it was hot all year round. Moreover, it was not even the attire worn by the Chara tribe. They were dresses and robes like the clothes worn by Abanerupili. Isn't winter outside? It's winter outside. Change your clothes when you start to get out of the mountains and jungle. In addition, hard-shaped shoes with closed toes and gloves were all prepared. And this, Sora held out the third packet to Shun. It was smaller in size and much lighter in weight than the previous two. However, for some reason, she could immediately predict that this last item would be the most important and valuable. She pursed her lips and opened the third packet with a careful hand. Mother, this is... Shan's green eyes looking at Sora shook. It's a map? The location of the Chara tribe village, located in the vast jungle of the south, has been kept strictly confidential. A long time ago, it was a way to protect the tribe from those who covet magical power. However, on the map that Sora gave to Shan now, all detailed routes from the village to the outside of the jungle were recorded. How long the elders endure not to give it away. After all, it's just a copy drawn after the original. Sora grumbled with dissatisfaction. Have you been busy all this time because of this? Yeah, shouldn't we have that to get out of the jungle safely? And just in case, words that had been cut off for a while continued. You have to know how to come back. Theory. Shan clenched her lips once more without realizing it, and she barely spoke out. I I thought my mother was angry with me, so I thought you didn't want to see me. Useless words. Sora kicked her tongue displeasedly. Then, did you think I would let you go empty-handed? Thank you. Don't forget to put it in. Shan folded the clothes and the map with a very careful hand, just in case it would get wrinkled. Sora, who had been looking at it, asked suddenly, Where are you going? A place called Lombardy. Shan, who paused for a while, replied, It said it would take quite a while because it was in the center of the empire. Yeah, that's fine then. Yes? Sora said to Shan, who tilted her head. Ask the teacher repeatedly on the way to learn how to write outside. You must know how to write. Yes, mother, and I'll write you a letter. So when you get out of the jungle, visit the Sector family. It is a place where we have had exchanges with our tribe for a long time. So I will help you, and Sora didn't say many words. As Shan growing up and looking at her mother rather belonged to the reticent side. However, it was unfamiliar to see such a mother pouring out words one after another. Shan, you have a habit of getting seriously ill once a year, so be careful. In the end, it was all about worrying about her daughter, who was leaving alone. Mother, Shan hugged Sora tightly. Even Sora, who had been frozen for a moment, gently swept Shan's back. I hope that your choices will lead you to happiness, Shan. For a long time after that, the mother and daughter hugged each other, did not know to let go of their hug. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It was the day when Sean and the Bannerapili left the village. Just when dawn began, Sean and Sora left the house and headed for the village entrance, where Abani was waiting. The sound of the footsteps of the two people stomping resounded particularly loudly. Neither Sora nor Sean said anything. The long and short road ended at the entrance of the village. Abane, who quietly greeted Sora from a distance, did not come any closer. It was to give the mother and daughter time to say goodbye. Shan, who had been looking at the road leading beyond the village, turned toward Sora. Mother, Shan, however, neither of the two could speak more. I'm sorry. Take care of yourself. I love you. Thousands of words lingered in her mouth, but in the end, the daughter dared not say a word and finally hugged her mother tightly. Okay, the mother who understood her feelings said firmly, holding her daughter's shoulder as if she was still young. Don't look back and go. Shan, who had remained frozen for a while, slowly left Sora's arms. Step, step. The sound of footsteps was getting farther away, farther away. She knew the sun would set dazzling soon, but her daughter has left on the road that is still dark. Sora leaned on her cane and kept her back, until finally the sound of those footsteps was no longer heard. Please be careful, be careful. In the end, only Sora's voice remained at the entrance of the village. End of chapter 303. Chapter 304. Rumble. The carriage shook greatly once, perhaps because it stepped on a stone embedded in the road. Oh, yeah. The inside of the carriage, full of four people and luggage, became noisy for a moment. Hey, go easy on the carriage. A man who got soaked while trying to drink water complained loudly to the coachman. Abane Ropili, who had fallen asleep leaning against the wall of the carriage and woke up from a rattle of the carriage, fixed her glasses and asked the other side, Shan, are you okay? Yes, Shan, who was staring blankly out the window, responded to the call one beat later. Then she looked around at the flower pot she cherished in her arms and answered with a nod. Oh, it's okay. The leaves weren't damaged. What she asked was not the condition of the plant, but the condition of Sean. Abane thought to ask again, but she soon shook her head, until now, leaving the village of the Chara tribe and finally reaching Lombardy. During their journey together, the two became very close and learned a lot about each other. However, there were still some corners that made Abane tilt her head when looking at Sean. It's obvious that it's the first time Sean has been out of the forest, but she know a lot of things as if she has lived for several years already, or that she didn't take the flower pot from the village away from her arms no matter what. Is it because of that ability? For ordinary people who can't see the future, such Shan was just a miracle. Abani said, tapping on Shan's knee, which was close enough to reach with a little movement. That flower pot, you said it's Bomnia, right? It must be heavy, but I'll hold it for you, even for a moment. Make yourself comfortable, Shan. The passenger carriage, which was shared with people with the same destination, was narrow and crowded. In the midst of that, it was very nerve-wracking and hard to travel for several days with cherished flower pot. Shan thought for a moment at Avani's suggestion, but then shook her head. No, we're almost in Lombardy. I can hold on. Thanks for asking, Teacher Abane. Shan, who answered with a smile, fixed the flower pot once, hugged it, and looked out the window again. The end, thinking how the destiny of this flower make my heart aching. From Perez, who cherished this flower, and it end up as the important ingredient, medicine of Talon-Bruce disease. What are you looking at like that? Although it was a bright day, the carriage was running on a field with nothing but farmland around it. However, Shan's eyes moved as if they were looking at something above the field. Abani, unable to hold back her questions like a scholar, tapped Shan's knees again and asked in a very low voice, "What are you looking at like that, Shan?" I don't know either, Shan replied with a shy smile. I just see a big building over there. It's a building with a lot of people. However, the place where Shan was pointing was just a vast wet field. It was the same the last time when I passed Cheshire. Cheshire was just a small town passing through when crossing from the south to the center. There was nothing to see except the large river flowing nearby. So even when everyone in the carriage fell asleep while snoring, Shan could not take her eyes off the scenery outside the window. It was when the bashful smiling Shan was about to say something. Woo woo. The carriage stopped slowly with the sound of a coachman soothing the horse outside. Why does the carriage stop, Teacher Abane? They said it still takes a little longer to get to Lombardy. Maybe it's because of the people who lined up to go inside. We'll have to go inside by the time the sun goes down. Does it take that long? It is the most prosperous city in the empire. If you're curious, get off and take a look, Shan. Avane added, we won't even move for a while anyway. Then I'll see you for a moment. Shan carefully opened the carriage door and came out. It was the land she stepped on in a few hours, but there was no time to worry about such things. Wow, it was spectacular to see all kinds of carriages and people lined up in a long time. And at the end was a very large city. It was not possible to see everything at a glance because of the high and strong walls, but that was enough. The city was exuding tremendous pressure just by standing there. There, Lombardy, Shan muttered, almost stumbling backwards without realizing it, the most prosperous city in the empire. At the same time, the light wind blowing from Lombardy shook the leaves of Bomnia and gave a shallow goosebumps to Shan's arms. Suddenly, she missed her hometown unbearably. She wanted to turn around and go back to the familiar place, but Shan clenched her fists and repeated the name, giving her courage. Gallihan, he was in that massive city. She hugged the Bomnia flower pot, which was now starting to bear seeds. Don't be afraid, Shan. After pushing herself, she looked a little more at Lombardy and quietly got into the carriage. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The restaurant and inn Blue Wave, located in Lombardy, was known to the locals as its own gourmet restaurant. The representative menu was none other than home-style breakfast, and from early morning to lunchtime was the busiest time with customers. Shan, can you bring this bread to the table over there? When Marge, the owner of the restaurant, held out a basket full of bread and shouted, Shan, with her red hair tied together, quickly accepted it and answered, Yes, ma'am. Blue Wave was the first hostel where Shan, who arrived in Lombardy a month ago, stayed. After Abani, who spent about a week with her, left Lombardy, Shan, who was left alone, tried to find a place and job to stay, and Marge, who heard the story, gladly offered the job that provided room and meals. Although the inn was hectic from waking up in the morning until the afternoon, Shan was very satisfied. It happened at dawn because it was a habit cultivated in the village, and she enjoyed working in the Blue Wave, where she could meet many people. And most of all, there were many things she got to know while huddling among people. Did you hear that story? Mark's daughter, Helen, became a Lombardi scholarship student. Is that true? That smart kids go to the academy so they can study without money? Thanks to this, Shan, a foreigner who has only been in Lombardy for a month and has learned a lot about the city and the Lombardi family. At that time, the table where two young men who seemed to be friends sat facing each other suddenly became noisy. Eat now, hurry up. Stop urging me. If I eat faster, I will bite my tongue. I mean, I saw that man by the river earlier. Before he leaves, we have to go take a look. I see, I get it. Ah, let's go. Eventually, the woman who couldn't overcome her friend's torch got up from her seat with half of the food left. Sean sighed quietly, taking the money and balls left on the table. It was because of a new fact that she had recently learned. What's pretty in my eyes is pretty in the other's eyes too. That is, Gallihan is quite famous among young women in the city of Lombardy. Of course, people did not know that he was the son of Lombardy. It seems that the fact that a very extremely handsome man sometimes appears in the city and paints has touched the hearts of many women. That's understandable. Shan sighed, once again recalling the appearance of Gallihan in her memory. Gallihan was handsome and pretty. His white skin seemed to glisten, and his drooping eyebrows were very gentle. Most of all, Gallihan was small and cute. In her dream, she was a cute man like a soft puppy or a squirrel rubbing his face. Everyone has a good eye, Sean muttered with a pouting mouth. That man is mine. It was when she was thinking that way, the innkeeper Marge patted Shan on the shoulder. Shan, your busy work is over, so go and rest. Is that time already? Then I'll go out and come back, ma'am. Okay, don't fall over. Shan put the apron she was wearing on one side and walked slowly, enjoying the cool spring breeze. As she felt through her skin that spring had arrived, her heart was pounding. We'll be able to meet soon. Shan walked towards the square every day when it was time for a break. It was to make sure that flowers bloomed on the flower tree, as seen in the dream. A few days ago, she asked Madame March slightly, and she said that the tree blooms a little later than others, so she'll still have to wait a few more days. By the way, huh? When Shan arrived under the tree on the way to the square, her eyes widened. Has the flower bloomed? Obviously, only yesterday, only flower buds had come up. When the wind blew, the petals fell like rain. It's been a while since she was mesmerized by the spectacular view that unfolded overnight. Shan slowly lowered her head and looked straight ahead. It was a gaze towards the fountain in the middle of the square. Oh, here it is. Although far away, the person sitting at the fountain drawing something was definitely Gallihan. Today, this is it. Today was the day she saw it again and again in her dream. Thump thump, her heart began to beat uncontrollably. Wah, Shan took a deep breath. I shouldn't be embarrassed. I have to make a good first impression so stay calm. Shan suddenly shut her mouth. It was because she felt the gaze or because she suddenly made eye contact with Galyahan, who raised his head. Thump thump. The wind blew once again, through the sound of the heart beating in her ears. Even amidst the scattered petals, Shan did not move her gaze toward Galyahan, and it was the same for Galyahan. Stopping his hand while drawing, he stared still at Shan. It was a time that seemed to exist, only the two of them in the crowd of people gathered in the square. Shan approached him one step at a time, with a desire to run away, as well as run away, and finally stood in front of him. Hi. Fortunately, her voice was not shaking. Speechless, however, Galyahan did not answer. He just looking up at Shan, who was approaching. Then Shan became anxious. Was it because I suddenly talked to him? She was suddenly scared, but she took the courage to ask one more time. What's your name? Galyahan, startled. Shan's shoulder flinched slightly at the lower voice than expected. I'm Galyahan. I'm Shan. Shan. Galyahan muttered her name. Thump, thump, thump. Now Shan's heart was beating enough to hurt. At the same time, she became impatient. I need to say something more. Shan hurriedly asked a question that came to mind. Do you like drawing? Yes, well, I'm not good at drawing. Galyahan replied, touching the edge of the paper with his finger. I think you can draw well. If it's okay with you, can you show it to me? Oh, she was going to look at the picture. She was so nervous that her toes were caught and staggered. TN, why cliche at this moment? Lol. In that brief moment, all sorts of thoughts ran through her head. What do you mean, good impression? I think I'll remain a funny woman who tripped over my feet. Shan closed her eyes tightly. She thought the only thing left was the pain and embarrassment of bumping her knees on the stone floor. She thought her waist was wrapped around with something hard, but what she saw in front of her was Galliahan's chest. Are you okay? She was surprised and looked up at the place where she heard the voice. However, her gaze continued to rise more than expected. His head was also bent for a while. Are you hurt? Jean's heart pounded loudly. If you look at the gentle eyes and fair skin, it's Galyahan. It's my Galyahan that she wanted to hug and sit on his knees and hug because he was cute. Gulp. Shan swallowed her saliva without realizing it. Shan, it seemed like it would be difficult for this tall man supporting her with one arm. End of chapter 304. Chapter 305. Galyahan, the third son of Lombardi family, hid the corner of his mouth that seemed to crump up with a glass of wine. Can you hear me, Galyahan? Gallian's eldest brother, Vich Lombardi, asked sternly. Having been ferocious and impatient since childhood, he had a personality that could change at any time, even if he smiled a bit now. He was still drunk, and his brown eyes gleamed over his smiling face. Yes, brother. When Gallian reluctantly answered, Vich nodded satisfactorily only then. Yes, yes, so that's my brother. Gallian's body shook violently as his hand gripped his shoulder. Last night, he tossed and turned all night and couldn't rest, floating around on wine with tired eyes. And if father tries to call you and ask you to do it, you refuse because you can't do it like this time. That's the right way. Lulak, Gallian's father and the head of Lombardi family, was a strict leader, and that attitude was the same for the children who inherited his blood. Nothing was just given. As a head of the family and as a father, Lulak Lombardi was constantly demanding achievements. However, the youngest Galliahan was the only one Lulak treated softly. He kept giving him opportunities and trying to support him in one way or another. Therefore, Vich, the eldest son who had not yet been announced as a successor, did not care to such a Galliahan. Then he almost fell behind when he heard that his father was going to give his youngest a seat at the Lombardi stop. Eventually, he called Galliahan separately and threatened to tell his father that he couldn't do it with his mouth. The visit, which came once a day, threatened, coerced, and dried blood, continued until Galliahan obeyed Vich. I'm not going to see my brother for a while. There was no reason to pour the tea from the seat where Vich forced him to sit, and in the end, Galliahan thought as he drank wine from the morning. Family business is not for everyone. It's better for me, with experience, to lead the work than for you, who doesn't know anything for no reason. I thought, well, in front of Vij, who was in a good mood to somehow get what he wanted. Galliahan just wanted to get out of this place. If he had known that he would eventually give up like this, he would have had to reject his father's offer from the beginning. He was greedy in the hope of wanting to. He felt pathetic for himself for spending tiring days. From now on, live quietly and modestly like that. Got it? At these words, Gallihan nodded helplessly. If you're done talking, can I get up and go, brother? Yes, oh, yes, yes. Viz, who now had nothing to do with Gallihan, waved one hand without sincerity. Gallihan, who trudged back to his room, quietly changed his clothes. With a familiar touch, he was dressed in shabby clothes that could be worn by commoners, and packed a crater lying on one side of the room. And I'm not sure what crater is. It's the translation. I assume it's a tool for drawing. Um, Even impatience was reflected in his steps of getting into the carriage by calling a coachman who was taking care of the horse. Would you like me to take you to your usual place, Mr. Galliahan? Yes, hurry up. At Gallian's request, the carriage quickly began to leave the Lombardi mansion. Sigh. Only then did Galliahan, who opened the window of the carriage and leaned comfortably against the seat, letting out a deep sigh. Now, I'm going to leave. Galliahan let the wind ruffle his hair. After his mother, Natalia Lombardi, passed away, the mansion was like a prison for him. A father who repeatedly looked down at his mother-like face and silently raised his unwanted expectations and was disappointed. And his brother Vich, who tells him to shut his mouth even though he lives quietly as if he was not exist. Gallihan was standing by and watching himself being pushed out of the house where he was born and raised. We have arrived, Mr. Gallihan. I'll go home on my own in the evening, so go back and rest. It was a deserted alley near Lombardy Square. Gallihan got out of there, ruffled his hair even more. Although he got out of the mansion, there was no place he actually used as a destination. Gallihan, who had been walking along the river for a while, soon turned to the square. He wanted to be buried in the noise of the crowd. Without realizing the blushing gazes that followed him, Gallihan sat across the fountain. After taking out the crater habitually, he moved his hand without thinking to draw. Still, he seemed to feel a little bit better when he mingled with the lively people. After a while, by the time the sun was setting high, he could smile at the young children running around. Then he suddenly turned his head. He didn't remember the reason. There seemed to be a sound from there, and there seemed that the wind was blowing. From the moment he found the woman standing under a flowering tree, it didn't matter. Oh, Gallihan stared blankly at the woman with red hair. And FYI, the translation is red hair. He just couldn't take his eyes off her. Time seemed to have stopped, or it seemed to have flown away. When he came to his senses, he realized that he was holding her, who had almost fallen, in his arms. As she looked up at his eyes, which were similar to him, but much deeper green, Gallihan woke up in surprise. Excuse me. He apologized quickly, and the hand that straightened Shan's body was constantly cautious. Thanks to you, I didn't fall. It's something I should be thankful for. At the sight of Shan smiling brightly while saying that, Galliahan somehow wanted to scoop up the water from the fountain. Then he bowed his head to greet and tried to escape. He didn't even have time to hide the tips of his red ears, tuck until Sean catches his sleeve. Galliahan couldn't breathe and looked down at the small hand that grabbed the loose hem of his clothes. It's a hand that he can hit as much as he wants, but there seemed to be a sound of a lock somewhere. Meanwhile, Shan was perplexed by it. How did you catch this? She thought she shouldn't let it go like this, so she did it. That drawing, Shan said, half shouting. Can I take a look at the drawing? My drawing? Yes, I want to see it so much. I'm doomed. He'll think I'm a weird person. With that thought in mind, Shan pulled back the sleeve she was holding tight. Just once. Here it is. Gallihan hesitated for a moment and held out the drawing board. Wow! Shan opened her eyes wide and exclaimed without realizing it. You drew it really well. It wasn't a lip compliment. She couldn't take her eyes off the scene of the square vividly on the single sheet of paper. How do you draw like this? It's nothing special. No, the picture is pretty, and above all, people look happy. I think it's a great picture. At Chan's smile, Gallian's face hardened. It was the first time anyone praised his painting like this. For Lombardi's third son, it was a useless skill, but not enough to enter the path of an artist. People who draw as much as I do are common. I don't have the skills to show it to others like this. Gallian murmured quickly and put the picture in as if hiding it. Seeing this, Shan tilted her head. It didn't sound like he was saying it out of shame and embarrassment. The constantly shifting gaze and the head facing the ground were telling her that something was strange. Less than a few minutes after meeting her future husband, Shan faced the first challenge. She was well aware of the future Galliahan will live in. However, there was something overlooked. It was that she didn't know much about Galliahan's past. She wanted to punch herself in the past, who thought carefully, once we meet, everything will go according to the fate. She doesn't know who it is, but she thought it would be appropriate to hit 100 or so of those who made Gallihan feel intimidated like that. Calm down. Here, we should not leave only embarrassing memories of each other. It was when Shan thought so and was rolling her head over what to do. Gallihan, who had already packed all the craters, spoke in a small voice. Nevertheless, thank you for your kind words. What should I do with this gentle guy? Shan felt Shan felt her heart ache and grabbed Gallihan's clothes one more time as he turned around. As she asked with the most pitiful face, I don't have any friends. What? So can't you be friends with me? Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Next day, standing on the busy street, Gallihan looked at the sky and sighed. A few steps away, he saw a building with a sign called Blue Wave that Chan had told about. I think we'll be good friends. What do you think? The woman he met for the first time yesterday, Shan said so and said today was her day off. At around lunchtime, she said, let's meet here at the Blue Wave. Even when he went to bed last night, Gallihan thought he wouldn't take her off. It was because he was scared. Just by looking at her for a moment, he seemed to have lost all his attention and mind. But what if they spent more time together? The coward in Gallihan was telling him to run away. So tomorrow he was going to be stuck in the mansion's library and read books all day long. When he came to his senses, he was already at the meeting place. Gallihan, who stood and buried his face in his large hands, was contemplating, then moved his steps to the blue wave. He had a stiff face as if he had made a big decision. Welcome, we're busy, so sit anywhere. A middle-aged woman who appears to be the owner greeted him. Gallihan stood there for a while and looked around the interior full of people. And then his green eyes dimmed. There isn't. Shan was nowhere to be seen. Well then, it was quick to give up, overshadowing the courage he has made. Not knowing what to expect, Gallian's broad shoulders fell helplessly. It was then, tock tock, with a light touch. He looked back, and Shan was smiling there. Have you been waiting? After that, there was a saying, am I late? But Gallian couldn't hear it, and thought blankly, perhaps all this time I've been waiting for this woman. End of chapter 305.